I love your energy. You are bubbly this early in the morning.
I'm so happy to be here, and I'm very, very thankful that you have me on. And I love, just to be able to express what's happening and try to educate people, and I'm
Oh,
passionate about it.
so I found you on LinkedIn, and we're both friends with Christian Ortiz, which I have highest esteem for. I had him as a podcast guest, and I love everything he's doing. And I love that he's brave enough to do it on LinkedIn. That's amazing, changing the conversation. But when I saw that your focus is baby beginner white women in this work, I was like, and I'm working with women over 40 who don't want to admit they're baby beginners, but honey, we've been living in a white bubble.
Yeah.
And that bubble, like it or not, is being burst on the daily. And we have no history in our generation of the hardships of war. And so I've been pulling in historical data to say abolitionist women and women here and women here. And here's what resistance and resilience looks like. But oh, please give us the baby steps.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And thank you for acknowledging what I do. I have a very specialty area in this entire broad, massive culture we have of we live in a culture of white supremacy, and some of us acknowledge it and others have a hard time or want to deny it. And I understand we're indoctrinated at birth. This is not a blame thing. This is not a you're a racist. It's like worse than being called the F word. It's horrible. So definitely I got I've had the opportunity to be mentored by some incredible people over the last 3 decades. And they've taught me best practices, which change every 5 seconds, by the way, of course. But
Right.
they've taught me so much. And I've had this great opportunity to work with thousands and thousands of people who are learning and who are like, what is going on here? Our country's so divided and I don't get it. And, we're all just trying to make ends meet. And there's no hub. There's no hub for us to go to. And our parents mostly, for white folks, our parents don't really know much usually. And so they couldn't teach us. And if you were like me, Kim, I, I was raised in the era of colorblindness where you do not talk about
Boom.
photo or you're a racist. Oh,
Right. Right.
puffy.
And I have merch I have yet to launch yet that says colorblind is still blind. And it was a bold statement when I created it almost a year ago. And now it's like, and I would be proud to wear it. So come on. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, things are changing rapidly, but it just doesn't feel like it sometimes because people haven't found their voices. A lot of us white women and white men, we might feel like, oh, I don't hate black people. Well, first of all, that's not the definition of racism. but also like we think, well, I'm not one of them. And and nobody wants to feel like they're racist. That's a terrible thing to feel. That's awful. I don't want to feel that way. But part of it is we, like I said, we don't have that hub to go to learn about what's really going on because we're kind of indoctrinated or at least kept a little bit like ignorant
Mhm.
from birth,
Mhm.
especially since we're still kind of segregated in the US. Pre 64, we really we are. And so part of it is education. It's just such a big part, but some folks just aren't ready to learn. And some folks, for example, they might feel it in their head, but they don't really know, they don't know what the words to use. They don't
Mhm.
know how to stand up to something and they don't want to make waves and us white folks, especially women, we are taught to play nice and don't ruffle any feathers, and so we have no confidence, and
Yes,
so I like to help people find their voice, and it's a process, so
it is. It
it's a
is.
long
So
process.
I only work with inclined white women. So they've already, by the time they are ready for me, because I
Mhm.
move them from finding their voice to moving into action,
Awesome.
they've already decided if they're going to read or if they're going to listen before they get
Right.
to me. So how do you move them from I'm not a racist, I have a black friend,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
to okay,
Right.
I'm ready to learn more besides read a book?
Right. I don't even, you know what's so funny is I never tell people to go read a book. I mean, if they ask me, of course, I'll say, like, well, this is a really good one. I like Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. I like uh I like a lot of things, but what I've kind of boiled it down to have after having worked with so many people, and everyone kind of has the same pattern. Thank goodness for me, so I can kind of put it all into this sociological little order. Is folks, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You don't know what you don't know, so you can't really understand where you're at and judge it because we all thought we got taught this in school, you know? So we can't really, but we didn't. Most of us, in fact, 99.99 didn't, because so we have to educate ourselves. And we're all working hard trying to put food on the table and make it in America. And so to do this, it's a lot of work, and it's introspection, and it's a constant dedication to that deep, lifelong continuum of anti-racist, lifestyle. It's not a hobby. And so it's a big commitment.
Right.
And so where I start with people is not reading books as much, although that's fantastic. I say, number one, if you have no time to do anything, zero, nothing, you're really struggling, but you want to get what's going on, the simplest thing you can do is listen to Black people and other people of color. It's simple as that. Sounds so simple. Listen to them and believe them. Believe their experience.
Yes.
And listen and listen. You don't have to say a thing. Just listen and empathize and understand. And that's an incredible start. You're already ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
But that's what I tell people, if they're just really saying I barely have time to breathe and take a shower. Come on,
Right.
Which we understand. And a lot of times we get caught in this bubble of people who think the same as us. And we don't want to, we don't know how to explain to them why we feel a certain way. What I'll do is it's not about feeling. It's about history, science, and mostly a bunch of sociology and psychology. And it's like I teach this course. It's like Anti-Racism 101, where to begin, for people who just started to notice what is going on here. Okay, maybe I should kind of figure out what's going on, and because it's easy to not, because we're all struggling to live our own lives. So the first thing I do, and it might sound almost belittling, but I talk about human constructs. I talk about, sorry, we have a little friend here trying to join. I talk about human constructs because you won't believe it, but most folks really don't know too much about that, what a human construct is. And it's always a good review for anybody, even if you're,
yeah.
with that, if you have a PhD in it. So does that make kind of sense? That's the first thing I start talking about.
Okay, so give us an example what you mean, human construct.
Absolutely. Like, for example, money is a human construct. Well, who thinks of it? We think of money as that's how we get what we want and live. Well, actually, if we all decided that this little piece of paper here that has $1 on it is just a piece of paper, and we all agreed, most of us, guess what? It wouldn't be worth $1. It'd be like something to write on, So a human construct is something that a society has set up, and most people agree on it and act as if they agree on it. And so in my course that I do, I start from that, because if you don't understand human constructs, which is perfectly understandable, it's no shame, it's just, maybe you didn't take sociology in college or whatever, then you don't have a basis to start. And so once people understand, another example of human constructs, and I'm not good with pop culture, so you're gonna have to tell me, a while back, a couple decades back, it was very in vogue to be a skinny model. And that was beauty was, really, really skinny. And everybody, well, remember before that, we had people like Marilyn Monroe, who was absolutely beautiful, but more shapely. And that was all the rage then. So how beauty is a human construct. In some cultures, the heavier you are, the more beautiful you are. And a lot of those cultures might have had problems with people getting food and being able to eat. So if you can eat a little extra, then that's considered in their culture beauty. So it's all a human construct. And we have to understand this. And race is a human construct. Most people think it's real, that there's real biological differences between people. And the human genome study, like a few years back, got a moving track of time. The human genome study showed us that it actually scientifically proved that race, it's a human construct. It's not real. Unless, of course, aliens are on our planet, in which case maybe they're a different race, but I don't want to go there. So anyway, that's the start. The very start is understanding human construct. And do you have any questions, or do you want to keep?
So you teach a course. So these are the steps of a course that you've been teaching. Do you do that online or in person, or how is that done?
I finished part 1. I've been doing this all along, but I finally made it official. And I finished part 1 and I put it on, Udemy platform, and, and I'm spreading it. I'm just starting to, market it, if you will. It's mostly free. It's not, you have to pay $9. And if you can't afford it, you go free. I'm not here to make money. I am here to spread the word. And I've been doing this for decades. So it's my passion, as you can tell. I'm a little bit like, I get a little excited about it, because the most beautiful thing is when you take somebody who comes to you and says, I don't see color, and talking about black and white, that's racist. And you get all that, and you slowly over time work with them where they're at. And I am not kidding. Miracles happen. It's life-changing in such a close cognitive dissonance between forming a more perfect union and wanting to have this beautiful, amazing country of ours be great for everybody. And then what we see in real life after pledging allegiance to the flag, and then we're like, wait a second, what about those guys? They don't seem to be, what about, it just helps close the gap of what we see and what we want to do by understanding.
I admire your energy and your passion for people in denial. I have worked with highly functioning addicts and alcoholics for over 30 years. And I finally burned out on getting people out of denial. And I think that's why I only work with inclined white women now.
You know what? It's smart.
Because the truth is, one addict will keep 20 codependents busy and will do damage. And one racist will do damage to 20 people and hurt people, and it just goes out. And so I ended up moving from working with the addicts and alcoholics to working with their wounded families, sometimes on retainer if they were Catholic and had 11 kids, right? And and now I just don't, I'm in the stage of my life. I don't want to waste my words. I'm through casting pearls. I'm not, if this is for people who want it, not for people who need it. And you better already know you want it, because if you're a hater or whatever, not in my world, I'm just blocking and moving on. But I love that there is a place to put people that I can say, you're not ready for me, but I know just the place where you can start. That's not with a black woman. That's with a white woman, so you can be comfortable.
And that's the big, I hate to say it, but a lot of everything I say has been said for centuries. There is nothing that I, as a white woman, am, bringing to the table other than I'm a white woman. And because of our country was basically built, made wealthy on white supremacy and the backs of people who were human beings and had lives and were taken and made into an enslaved status. And I'm not saying anything that every Black, brown, indigenous person of mixed heritage, African American, hasn't screamed from the rooftops, but sometimes people who are really struggling will actually listen to me over people who live it. I don't live it. I don't have to live it. I can pretend I don't even know anything. Like, what? racism. Oh, please, we had a Black president. Come on. You know, so it, I could do that if I wanted to. It's just, at first, when I first started years ago, it was not a best practice to be a white person. And I don't speak for Black people.
Right.
I do not speak for Black people. I learn from Black people.
Mhm.
My mentors are Black. They teach me. And every time I talk to anybody like that, I learn. And my friends, I've been lucky enough to be taught. And what I do is I don't teach Black people. They teach me. I teach white folks because it's taking racial responsibility. And just like you would anything else.
Yeah.
We didn't, can I tell you this? I kind of tend to talk a lot, so you can stop me if you want me.
You're good.
I can shut up. The way I put it, and this isn't a perfect analogy by any means, but the way I put it, that it's kind of the closest I could come up with, is, would you walk by somebody, stranger, if they were in a pool and they were struggling terribly in a pool, and they knew how to swim, but they were struggling? Would you walk by and say, well, I didn't shove you in? Well, of course not. I didn't shove you in. Would you walk by somebody in a pool just like that who was struggling, and you saw, like, I don't get it, because I know they can swim and I can swim and we're all the same, and say, well, I didn't build the pool? Of course not. You'd be like, let me help this person. Why do we see such obvious systemic racism and discrimination and bigotry in our world, and then take offense instead of saying, well, I want to be a part of helping?
Right.
So it's there's a lot to it. You cannot learn an anti-racist lifestyle over an hour. It takes like a whole lifetime. So
Well, and now, just like DEI is a hot word, so people are finding other ways to say it. And I've always done culture and communications before DEI was a thing, so it's not a
right, of
shift for
course.
me. But words like anti-racism, white supremacy, white fragility automatically get so those white folks backs up. And if it's not them, it's the trolls or the bots that come hitting your podcast or your social media.
I've
That
been
was
there,
one
done
of
that.
my biggest fears was, who am I, an old white woman, to speak into this? And sometimes it was Black creators coming at me the hardest. And I was like, well, we're all steeped in racism. I don't care, because we are human and we are in this culture. And it's working by design, exactly as it was designed to. You are your own worst enemy, okay? Where you think it's us, it's all of us.
Yeah.
And I realized when I could say, I am not here to convince Black folk that I'm a safe person. I am in here to encourage white people to become safe places. My target market isn't that, and I'm not going to give that any energy or any credence. My target market are those white women who are struggling. And oftentimes in our age group, they're struggling because they now have children who have intermarried. And now they have mixed race grandchildren like me. Or they've blended families with someone who has, Black ancestry. And I was 65 before I spent the night in a Black household, and I was terrified I wouldn't do it right. Well,
Yep.
I've come a long way, baby.
You sure have. And you know what? You are a living example of, you can get this. And I mean, obviously you're an extreme, that you've just done so much. You've dedicated your life to living an anti-racist life. I mean, you to learning, and that's all you have to do. It's not like it's not such a big thing. It's like anything else. You dedicate your life to compassion and understanding. And we do that for a lot of things. So this isn't that different. It's just something that we have as white women. Our culture has taught us that we are, kind of all that. And unfortunately, white women have, in general, as you know, been the catalyst for some of the worst atrocities in human history of America and the United States, because this culture of systemic racism. And we have been the protected ones. And because of that, we are way up there in upholding, white women. And think we wouldn't be, because we understand sexism and we understand what it feels like to not be,
Right.
to be a second class citizen, I suppose you could say.
Uh-huh.
But nope,
Yeah.
we were, and part of it is again historical, with the Casual Killing Act.
Mhm.
Casual Killing Act is a long, long, long ago, centuries ago. White women in the Americas who would have white husbands, and they would own human beings. And white human beings were the first property white women were allowed to own. And you probably know all this. I'm just
I
giving.
did not know this.
And
Educate
so
me.
own we did. Oh yes. I mean, we couldn't own property,
Mhm.
but we could own
That was
humans.
your power.
Yeah. So let me tell you. And when our husbands, because they were ruling the roost,
Mhm.
took an interest in one of the very beautiful humans that they
Mhm.
enslaved,
Mhm.
and ended up with no birth control, having a little baby running around, a
Mhm.
little beautiful brown baby, um,
Mhm.
that was not something we could handle, obviously. And so what was happening, and this is simplifying it all, what was happening is white women were killing the children and hurting them and murdering them, and they made a law called the Casual Killing Act. And it basically said, if an enslaved person that we've enslaved is harmed in the discipline of
Mhm.
getting them to do what you're told, then you are not guilty.
Oh my
And
God.
we actually had a law in some of the colonies. So, I mean, we've been doing this a while. And, white women, we need to get this, not out of guilt, but
Right.
just to understand, like, okay, there's been a history of this.
Right. And
And
it is a human condition.
absolutely.
And it is the human condition, and we're pack animals at the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of it. And we want to be on the winning side, whatever that looks like. And we align with power to reduce our exposure and our risk. And it just happens that white women are the closest to the white supremacist power that make the laws, policies, and
Yeah.
organizations that rule the world.
And we empower our husbands, and
Yep. Enable is a good
enable,
word.
right, enable, exactly, that was the word I was
Enable
actually looking
bad
for.
behavior. We
We
make
enable our husbands,
excuses.
and we make excuses, and we
Mhm.
don't even know enough a lot of times to even start to talk to our kids. And of course we don't
Yeah.
want DEI, and we don't want anything
Mhm.
about the truth in the classroom, because what if our kids come up to us and ask us, and we won't even know, and we don't. So we have to educate ourselves, and not overnight. It takes years. It
Yeah,
takes a lifetime.
lifetime.
It takes
Yeah,
a lifetime. But you
yeah,
do it not because you're some savior or some, like, want your picture on Facebook. You
yeah.
do it because you love your fellow humans, and you would want, this is how you'd want to be treated. And
So
it's
Kim,
a human.
part of the human condition is to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And so when we hear about that little law that I've never heard about before that says white women were killing colored babies, what?
Mhm.
If I am steeped in white traditional female trad wife culture, that I am responsible for everybody's feelings and for everybody's everything. And the first thing I'm going to feel is guilt or shame. The next thing for my ancestors or my race or my whatever, I wasn't part of that. So the next thing I'm going to do is excuse myself and the men I lived with. That
Absolutely.
was then, this is now, no reparations necessary.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
next thing I'm going to do is get angry that somebody's making me feel that way, because anger is my power. If I don't get sad and depressed over it, then I'm going
Mhm.
to get angry over it. None of which translates into a shifted life and culture.
Right. And that is where I come in.
Thank
You
you.
go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
that's
no,
where
that's exactly where I was headed.
learning a social construct is just the very, very beginning, learning what it is and how it is.
Yeah.
The next step is, now that we get race as a social construct, and there's a lot to it. I don't take 1 minute to teach it. It's get it, digest it. It's not, this is not like a crash course. This is a over time kind of get it so that it's part of the repertoire of your being.
Putting
And
your
it takes a
toes in
while,
the water.
right?
Yep.
And the next thing is, we talk about race as a system. Okay, most people think race is like I burn crosses on the lawn, I'm a racist. I say the N-word, I'm a racist.
Right.
It's kind of a cool thing, and it's very, it makes it easy to drop your ego, because when you realize race is a system and not about you personally,
Yes.
then you're like, well, I can talk about that.
Mhm.
Like let's say you talk about the Vietnam War and all its horrors. Well, that is something you didn't do that
Right.
personally. There's a system,
Mhm.
a governmental choice of
Mhm.
very, very powerful systems. That's what systemic racism is. It's
Yeah.
not about us as white individuals. We're
Yeah.
participating and we're in it and we benefit from it. But
Mhm.
the coolest part, I think the coolest thing I ever learned was it's not about me. So slap that ego off me. It's not about me. It's not about guilt.
That means I can listen better. Yes.
Absolutely,
It's not
absolutely.
personal.
The,
Yeah.
the second thing I do is I teach and explain that it's a system that we live in that was purposely created. And I'll tell you, people think, what, purposely created? And listen to this. And I don't know if you've heard this quote before, but this is something that's so powerful to me. All this is like, I had to learn too, just like everyone else. And I'm still learning. Every day I still learn. And okay, check this out. And it's antiquated language. It's actually kind of rude, but I'm going to say it because it's President Lyndon B. Johnson. Love him, hate him, whatever. Quoted, if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him someone to look down upon, and he'll empty his pockets for you. And that, this man understood systemic racism. He understood it really well. And it's a powerful thing. And we're kind of easy targets because we all want to be, we want to feel great and good. And,
Yeah.
there's so much to it.
And better than. It is the human condition to be one up, one down. And we're always shame based, no matter. But we're always comparing ourselves as a race, as a church, as a gender. So if I can feel better than you, that makes you worse than me. And if I feel worse than you, then that makes you better than me. And this worse than you doesn't feel good. But this superior position,
Mhm.
I like that. And
Exactly. And there's just
we all
so
do
much
it.
to this, so much psychology to it, and
Yeah.
sociology, and understanding our culture. Um,
Mhm.
Another thing I do is, and this is really like one of the biggest parts of educating people about systemic racism, educating white folks who are very, very reluctant and who really are, give me a break. I don't see color, and people who talk about racism, they're the racists, that kind of thing. And this is another important part is we think we learned our real history,
Mhm.
but we really didn't. Our real history is about 1,000, times worse than anything we've ever heard. A lot of folks are led to believe in school, and they actually teach this that, after emancipation, woohoo, we're out dancing in the streets. Well, did you really think that people who were believing in owning and murdering and raping and torturing our fellow humans were going to be like, okay, the law says that they're humans now? Oh, hell no. So we basically, in the aggregate, not everybody, but
Mhm.
we basically decided that we would do everything in our power, and I'm talking about our government,
Mhm.
to make sure that Black, brown, and indigenous people could not live in an equitable status in their
Right.
life, and they couldn't have what we had.
Mhm.
And so there are thousands and thousands of um, laws and events and happenings and de facto, de jure. I mean, I'm talking like stuff we learned in school wasn't
Mhm.
even 1%, not even close.
No.
So, but we don't know that. So we think, well, we get it, and it's
Mhm.
kind of funny when I list, I try to say, like, you don't have to say you're a racist. You just had to teach the real racial history. And then you'll realize, oh, wow, like Jim Crow, separate but equal, the disclaimer in the 13th Amendment, the Devil's Punch Bowl, the Compromise of 1877, school to prison pipeline, for profit
Mhm.
prisons, resource
Mhm.
officers in school that are supposed to stop shooters but end up arresting and expelling Black people in astronomical rates.
Um,
It's all built in.
mhm, mhm.
Redlining is, oh my gosh, huge. But
Right.
people are like, what? What's that? Like
Well,
20 years ago, people didn't know.
and no, I went to Dr. Nikki Lanier, who Harper Slade. She is the founder of the Rare Woman Collective, and she's a Black woman who reached out, who's caught my heart with her graceful approach to white women leaders who are inclined to do work in this space. And I went to an event in Louisville, Kentucky, where I learned that Louisville is the only remaining segregated city in our country. It still is redlined. It still is.
They still have it in the test for realtors. It's in the realtor test, redlining
What the hell?
today.
I, those little data points just make my head explode because I, in my bubble, thought it only happened a long time ago and it only happened in the South and it never happened until I moved to Spokane, Washington when I was 40. And right across the border was Aryan nations in North Idaho. And right after we moved there with our teenage children and preteen children, there was an incident on the Gonzaga campus with 3 Black students and Aryan Nation. And I was like, what? They were still allowed to do parades in the street then. And I see now that they're back to doing
Absolutely.
parades in the street.
Yeah, no, it's almost surreal. It's really almost surreal because you just can't believe that this is still, but part of it is we never reconciled they call it what do they call it? The original sin of the United States of, we never reconciled it. And I'm not, there's no one to blame. I mean, I know Lincoln supposedly wanted to just keep the Union together and all that, but when you have half, actually, it was more than half because the attitudes, even the abolitionists at the time, most of them were like, send them back. They weren't the abolitionists we think now.
Yes.
They were like, well, yeah, we don't want to be mean to them, send them away. I mean, it wasn't the kind of, they didn't want equality and equity and they're not going to live with us. I mean, it wasn't what we think.
Oh my God, right?
And so,
Vermont is still the whitest state in the Union.
right. And so we never reconciled, and I hate to say it, but created a place where comprehensive education and understanding through science and history, not blaming, you don't even use the word racist, just teach the history. There's thousands of race massacres that happened that people don't know about. And just teaching that kind of thing and explaining the circumstances and learning like any other part of history is, you don't have to call someone racist. They will realize, wow, we have one hell of a racist, and the statistics today speak, you can't, but you can, I suppose, if you want to lie, you can't say that they're not right. They over and over again, the same statistics. Like, for example, the white doll, black doll experiment. Do you know about that? And that was used to try to overturn segregated schools. That actual experiment was used in the court case. And a lot of people think that human, experiential experiment was used to end separate but equal with schools. Because if you do it today, you get pretty much the same result. And that's,
Tell me, okay, so give us the nutshell what it was.
What this is, it's a very simple little thing. And you take little kids who really, are just starting, 3 and 4 year olds. And what they did was they take little Black, brown, indigenous, African American, little 3 and 4 year olds, and they would show them a doll, and they would ask them, and these kids have had a little socialization, but not much. They're little, the babies. And somebody would say, which doll is the good doll? And there'd be a black doll and a white doll. And it's absolutely heartbreaking to watch. And of course, the black doll's the bad doll. The black doll, the ugly doll. These are 3-year-olds. Hey, no one's told them you're ugly. No, I mean, hopefully. This is our society.
Well, and what I thought was germane about that study was that Black children picked out the black doll as the bad doll. It was when we say it's systemic, it's human, we are all should be anti-racist because we are all racist in
You're
our first 6 years of life in this country, on this planet.
right. And it's understandable that black people aren't immune to this
White
poison infection,
supremacy is real for
self
them.
self
Mhm.
self-hate and all these terrible things that come with it. And we just don't call it systemic racism for them because they don't have the power to actually really do terrible damage. Right now, white
Mhm.
folks have the power. And that is why I am always trying to have, us white folks understand. And a lot of people just cringe when they hear the word white. So that means they're not quite there yet. That's like, but if you could get by that, white folks need to understand we share a common plight we don't share a common plight with the wealthiest elites who are billionaires. I'm sorry, we want to, but we don't. We share a common plight with everyone else. And if we were ever to come together and have a voting block,
Yeah.
oh goodness. I mean,
Mhm.
for the people, of the people, by the people, and all that stuff. I don't know which order it's in, but
Yeah.
would be we would be actually living that.
Right.
So, and that's the biggest fear of the wealthiest elites, and it always
Mhm.
has been, is
Mhm.
that every time we start getting closer and closer, remember the welfare queen. Do you remember this big welfare
Oh
queen
yeah,
back
Reagan's
in
era.
Reagan?
Yeah.
Reagan's
Yeah,
era.
I
Yeah.
do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Welfare queen. Well,
Mhm.
the welfare queen, there was a welfare queen.
Mhm.
There was a white lady. Okay. He didn't have to say anything because, of course, everybody assumed it was a black person. It was a white lady. The original welfare queen was a white person who was caught, triple, quadruple, it's a long story. I read the article a long time
Work
ago.
in the system. Yeah.
What he did was he helped us remember that we want to blame black folks for everything.
Mhm.
And it helped because then we wouldn't be focused on the wealthiest people who use their money
Mhm.
to make the laws better for them. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's very complicated, but yet kind of simple. It's
Uh-huh.
like psychological, I guess you could say.
Right.
So,
Right. So in the United States, it projected that in the next 20 years, working America, which pays the taxes and runs the government, et cetera, that white men for the first time will be the minority, right? And that black and brown will be the majority, and that if we haven't made this fundamental thinking shift and moved people of color into solid middle class positions or ability to do that, not 62 cents on the dollar compared to white men, that we are set up for apartheid. And
yeah.
and when I first
Yeah.
learned that, that was kind of far-fetched to me because I didn't know that much about apartheid, but now it's pretty close to home with the billionaire from Africa
From the
who,
actual country that is the
from the actual
poster
country, with
child, the
all the
poster child of
dollars
apartheid. Right.
to preserve the fact that if we're going to be a minority population, we're at least going to be the richest freaking minority population in control of all the systems for you poor people down there.
Absolutely.
I don't
That is an
even
outstanding point you just
I
made.
don't even know what to do with that. That's just like a whole nother moment, right?
Yeah. Well, wow. That's a very
But
the
we're
way you put
20
that.
years and this 20-year cycle matters. And so when you talk about, I talk about the power that women have had historically to move the needle toward racial equity, one baby step, one conversation, one meal, one child at a time.
Taking each responsibility.
If we could come together in a voting block and had the opportunity to vote again, or in a
Boom.
or in a movement that just defied all that they think is holy of women finding their voice and their power, then we've got 20 years to make that difference. If we waste 4 more years, 4 more years, 4 more years, it's already, I mean, we're 2.5 months in, it's fucking unrecognizable.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. It's the chaos alone is
Yeah.
unbearable, and it's
Yeah.
hard. I don't know how anyone. I mean, this is what I do for a living, basically, and I can't keep up. I beg people, send me things, tell me things, and it's really
Uh-huh.
hard to keep your head in the game But part of our problem, like you said, just eloquently put, one of our problems is that we are, as white folks, we know so little about this whole system we're living in, of
Mhm.
that we're afraid that maybe when we're the numerical minority, we might
Yes.
get treated the way we treat Black people today. And that
Right.
is like our fear. So we have this fear factor. We're afraid. We don't have any close, intimate friends who don't look just like us. All we
Mhm.
know is stereotypes and what we hear. And when I was a little girl, I'll tell you, I remember how I was taught to be racist. I remember, and this is going to sound as one little example. I know I'm kind of pulling us from the topic,
Do.
but I remember when I was really little, I'd come out of bed and I'd sneak down and look around, and my parents would be watching TV, and I didn't know what it was. I was like 2 or 3. I was a baby, and I'd run back up, and a couple nights this happened. I would come down and they're watching TV, and I saw what they were watching. I just sit there like, what is that? And there would be lots of shining lights on the screen, and like police, I guess, like
Mhm.
emergency, and they'd have 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 Black people in handcuffs with these
Mhm.
little lines over their eyes. So like you could
Mm.
really see
Uh-huh.
them kind of.
Yeah.
And what is a little baby going to think when and then the police are saying these are criminals and and
Mm.
what does that tell us every night? Well, they were watching the 11 o'clock news in California every night
Oh,
together.
okay.
And what does baby Kim see? Well, Black is bad, I guess, or something. And then maybe, and I'm not dissing on parents and my mom, but maybe we passed an area that had a huge wall from redlining, and there'd be graffiti all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
maybe she would say, "Oh, that's a really bad area." And I'd
Uh-huh.
look and I'd see a lot of brown and Black people. She didn't have to tell me.
Right.
It's indoctrination,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
indoctrination. And I could give a thousand other examples, but
Yeah.
it's not our fault.
Right.
It's our culture that we live in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gotta we gotta make this better and do better, because I, it's inevitable, because if you have a dark color and a white color and you mix it, you get a middle. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just how genetics works. It's
Right.
how it works.
Right.
And we are going to be browner and, tanner and browner and all that. And there's not a damn thing wrong with it.
No,
It's,
no,
it's,
but even then, already, colorism is a thing.
oh yeah. Oh, there's so
No.
much to this.
Light
Oh,
color is preferable over dark color. Even
oh,
even then, there's, as long as we don't get to the root cause of this and we focus on the little outpickings,
mhm.
we will forever remain divided into little schisms that are easily manipulated, managed, and maneuvered.
And one of the things, and that brings me to, it's kind of like, people sometimes ask me, because I'm sort of vocal about this because I'm so passionate about it. It
Oh,
means
no.
so much to me. As you can tell, I'm kind of fast. And I don't even care, because I'm like, you know what, I'm
I
old.
love
Hey,
it.
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Um, I'm too old for just, like kind of maybe, I just say it, and I'm not trying to hurt people. It is such a great feeling to understand the place that you live and the culture you live in. And I know for me, it really is an amazing thing. When One of the number one things that got me kind of getting this when I was a little girl is actually this saying from a man named Martin Niemöller. I'm not sure if not everybody knows who he is. It's kind of obscure reference, but I bet you will know when I tell you, because everybody knows this. Martin, my dad, when I was a little girl, I don't know, I was probably 10 or under, he told me this, and it stuck with me my entire life. And I don't even know if he knows, but I should tell him sometime. Um, Martin Niemöller was a German theologian and a Lutheran pastor in Germany during, Hitler's era, and he is best known for his later stage opposition to the regime during the 1930s, and for his quote around 1946. He was at first kind of thinking maybe, it's okay, whatever, just whatever, it's kind of cool. He's going to get us all, make Germany great again. And what happened was he slowly started realizing, like, ooh, this isn't good. And Hitler jailed him, put him in prison. He was the enemy of the state. But when he finally came out and got to talk to, and I don't remember when he did this exactly, but it was throughout his life, he came up with this saying that he would say to his students, and it was that something like this, because he would redo it just like, first they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out. I knew you know, I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And that is just kind of sums it all up.
Mm-hmm.
Any injustice is an injustice to all of us. And if it's not now, it will be soon.
Right, right.
That's
So I was talking to people who retired from the federal government. And when this all started January 21st, when the stuff started hitting 50 times a day, executive orders and whatever it was, they were saying to me, and I am not military or whatever, they were saying, oh no, but it's not going to stand because we have systems and we have this, we have that. And I said, I see those systems being dismantled so fast, there's nothing to stand for them. So I said, I'm curious. I don't know whether you federal employees are living in a bubble of, oh, but that can't happen because three branches of government, or if I'm being a conspiracy theorist because I don't see these things unfolding the way you do. Well, we're now another 6 weeks into it, and suddenly um, the conversation has shifted because their friends are laid off and the democracy is being dismantled and challenged sort of, but it's not in any way, not in any timeline that's going to make it anything it ever recognized. And I used to work with veterans of PTSD veterans and their families from Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that I said to people then was, here's your problem in marital couples. Here's your problem. He's back and he's had stuff, right? And now he's different. He's never going to go back to being who he was before the war. And therefore, your relationship is never going to go back to what it was before he went away. And the sooner you can grieve that, feel that, and find out what the new normal wants to be so you know if you can stay or go, the happier you're going to be. But we hold on to the old way. Right now, in this moment, I see our culture very much that same way, that we're thinking if somebody would stand up to this guy, we could go back to the way it was. And I'm telling you, the damage is done. Even if tomorrow they jailed them all, that 52% that voted that way, what we knew before is forever gone. So our season 2 here is about resilience, and it's rolling into resilience and resistance. I can feel it with my guests and what's happening.
We're at a pivotal point. Are we ever?
How do you recommend to people who are still in the denial bubble? How do you get them to a place of resilience without, can you get them to a place of resilience, or are they going to get lost in the that's not a shuffle? And if they are, where's your resilience going to be going forward with the ones who can and will do something?
Yeah, that's a loaded question, and if I could have a perfect answer to that, I would be very, very popular. Part of my when I explain that I work with the people who are most resistant and all that, I have a limit also.
Okay.
So there's a subset of a subset of a subset, and this whole educational thing with teaching white folks is more of an art than a science, I have to say. And it's as as like therapists know this, and anybody who's ever worked with people, it really is, everyone is very individual. And part of what's going on. There will be people, and there always have been, the extremes on, and the extremes might have loud voices, but they do not usually stand for everybody. But the problem is, it's not the extremes that are really the biggest problem right now. I mean, really, really extreme people who are, the Bible says, and they believe in basically superiority. They truly believe this.
Eugenics.
They're eugenicists, exactly. Yeah. And what are you going to do? Those, I want to just be honest. Those, I can't. I mean, I am not a miracle worker. Yeah. I can't. I can't. And it's you do have to pick and choose who you. But people will give you a little glimpse, even the most, even the people who are real low on that continuum. They'll give you a glimpse of, you know what, they want. I can tell they want to. They just don't get it. They want to get it. I can tell their heart is in the right place. They're just missing pieces. And I want to. And so you really do have to pick and choose. But it's those people who aren't extreme educational activists and willing, crazy people like me. And then the people who are complete, basically they're sheets off, they're missing their clan meeting. Okay. Right. But everybody else in the middle, we're the people. We're the people who will make the difference, and we're the people who will decide what kind of culture and life we want for our children. And we're not getting enough of us finding our voices. We need more people, white folks, to take racial responsibility and speak out and speak truth to power and encourage people to listen to Black and Brown and Indigenous and African American people and listen to their words and believe. Okay. And the best we can do.
That's beautiful. That wraps it exactly where you started. Step one is the end game. How very well balanced for you. Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for this great opportunity. I was very shy when I was younger, so in fact making up for it, like as an adult. I never shut up, and it's just I just have a lot of passion for this topic, and I have, since I finally figured it out, over time, and I'm still figuring it out.
So where can people find you, and how do they sign up for your course?
The best way to find me right now, and I will definitely give you this information after our talk, is right now I've been kicked off every social media there is. So right now I'm on, and I get kicked off with like 50,000 followers. I get kicked off with 30. Oh, it's horrible, because nobody wants to allow this kind of thing to go on. And so I am on LinkedIn, and that is my main place you can find me. And I will definitely give you that information. And a lot of folks just watch and listen. They don't say a peep. They connect with me, or some people, what they do is they message me and say, I'm not into this like public forum thing, but I have questions, and talk to them privately. I'll talk to them on the phone. I'll do whatever it takes. I did this myself. We're in the no judgment zone, I promise, because I'd be judging myself. Yes. I'm from this culture, and so that's where they can find me. And if you want to take the course, it's either $9 or free. So whatever you want to do, and it's on Udemy. And there's only 2 courses on Udemy. You'll see my picture and everything. And I would love for people to learn. If you want to learn, I will help you any way I can, because that's what I love doing.
Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for bringing your energy and your voice and encouraging people. And I am so grateful that we've had you and that you've shared your heart with us.